Hello, my darling. How
Thanks
are you?
for coming.
I am really, really so happy to be here. And as I said to you before I came in the room, I especially came back from London just to come and do this.
No, I just don't know whether I can believe this. I do believe it because I know you're not full of BS. But I'm just like, wow, I'm shocked.
No,
and honoured.
No, I'm telling you. So
Why?
Well, I had so. As you know, I decided not to run for office. I left office in May, early May, at the last election, and I left the city the following day. And I've been away for the last 2 months. So I've been in London. I've been chilling with my girls, basically de-stressing from the whole world of politics, doing some traveling, and trying to navigate what my next moves are going to be as I transition out of politics into my next role. And so lots of people wanted to see me, and I just said, well, no. I thought I'd set myself a goal of 8 weeks I'm going to be away, and then when I'll come back. And so when you reached out to me and said, oh, Asha, and I just put it in the diary. So yours is the first meeting, interview, or anything that I have done, and it forced me to come back to it. Basically, you're who forced me to come back to Bristol.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know the language that come out of my mouth then. Could have been
Don't you dare.
All right. That's amazing. Well, I feel privileged that you'd want to do that.
No, because I could have easily cancelled. I could have said, I can't do this. But no, one thing I don't like to do is let people down.
Can you remember when we first met? You'd have to have a good memory now.
I really have to have a really good memory now. I do remember the interview that we did on the steps of City Hall, and I know it was prior to that. But I think it was when I first stepped into the role as lead for education and children's services. So I think it was just as I had got the portfolio, and I can't remember if you reached out to me and we had an initial discussion, but remind me.
Well, no, I think you're on it. To be honest, I'm not asking this question with me actually remembering exactly when it was. I think you're right.
You reached out to me. I reached out to you, and as usual, I said, "Come on in, let's have a conversation."
Well, what was how did you feel that? Because I don't know if you can remember. I do remember being quite. I'm always very passionate and frustrated about things that don't make a difference to young people.
The reason why I'm sitting here now is because you were extremely passionate. I think one thing that people need to understand about me is I come from the community. You know, I cut my teeth in the world of community development, social justice, racial justice. So I will fight for each and every one of those whose voices cannot be heard. And when I met with you, you came across as, extremely passionate, but I could see the frustration.
And knowledgeable.
Yeah, okay, and knowledgeable. But I was very much aware of your frustrations, particularly around your ambition for where you wanted to take grassroots communities, the work that you were trying to do in setting up the GAP project, because I think you were in the early days of setting up the GAP program. And the one thing about me is, I'm here to help, use my hard and soft influence any way I can to potentially help people who are there to help others. And I've always said I am passionate about young people. So when Marvin asked me to step into the role of Cabinet Lead for Children and Young People, even though I did want to hold on to my community's role, he's like, Asha, that would be too big. You can't. You can't. So I let that one go. But I just thought, now I've got time. Now I can really get to work and sort out youth provision in the city and everything else that goes with education, particularly being a city like Bristol. I always remain quite shocked at the outcomes for children and young people here in a city that has the highest GDP outside of London, extremely wealthy, the whole shebang, that the highest number of students who come here. We've got 2 world-class universities here, but yet we have young people right here where we're sitting in Knoll West, in Hartcliffe, in Easton, in Lawrence Western. We have 6, 7 of the poorest neighborhoods in the whole of the country. Absolutely.
In the whole country.
Absolutely. So I have been
most are in the south.
So I have been on a mission since I was 18, 19 years old that I was going to champion those who had no voices, whether they were adults, whether they were young people. But yeah, I had the audacity to.
No, it's good you did. I mean, I want to take you back a little bit before 18.
Okay.
So, we want to know a little bit more about you growing up and what it was like growing up. What was the challenges? What was the positives? Can you paint a picture for us?
So I'm currently writing my memoirs because one of the things that a lot of people think they know who's Asha Craig. They think they know me, but you know me at a moment in time, and I decided that, and also just for my daughters as well, they needed to know who their mother was, where she came from, their background, family. So I'm writing my memoirs. So in my memoirs, you're going to get the same Asha, but set in 3 different stages. There's the Asha that was brought up with her mother and father and her siblings. Then there's the Asha that became the community activist. And then there's the Asha that also transitioned into a politician. And actually my book is currently called The Accidental Politician because I hated politics and politicians growing up.
I tell you what, you're doing quite a good job as a politician. What were you doing when you were growing up? Because I think that's really...
So when I was growing up, so for those who don't know, so my parents are part of the Windrush generation. In fact, even my memoir starts off as a bit of a love story. My father came to Bristol first. My mother arrived, didn't know my dad, and he was working at Templemead Station. And he said he met my mum. He said, your mother stepped off the train at Templemead Station, and she looked confused and didn't know where, she didn't know where to go because she literally just landed that day from Jamaica. And he said, I saw this beautiful woman on the platform and I had to go and talk. So his entry was, do you need any help? And then the next thing you know, they're getting married and they have children.
Good work.
But but I was born and brought up in Redland, myself and my siblings. And I said before we came on air as well, the difficulties that my parents had in trying to even buy a house, let alone buy a house in Redland with all of the kind of racism that existed back then. But they did manage to buy that home, and I was brought up in Redland. I went to Colston Primary School, which is now, which has been renamed. And then I went on to Cotton Grammar. So Cotton Grammar was then an all-boys school. So there were about 1,000 boys at the school, and I went to the school. We were the first intake of girls, so we had girls in the first year.
Wow.
And we had and then add on that there was only 2 black girls.
Crikey.
In the whole. So
you stood out like a beacon of hope. I'm sure.
Let me tell you, and can I just say as well, my first experience of racism, I didn't really feel it until I went to secondary school. Up until that point, pretty plain sailing, loved going to school and everything that to my primary school and all of that. But when I went to secondary school is when I kind of experienced racism.
What were the challenges? Can you give us some examples of some of the challenges growing up at that time?
So the thing is, okay. And I'm not here to sound really arrogant.
No.
Okay,
to be honest,
so what people don't know is that my mother passed away when I was 8 years old, and my youngest sister was only 6 months. 6 months. So my mother passed away. She'd given birth to my daughter and my sister, and then she had she got cancer. And back then when you were younger, yeah, I think that was a really difficult time because it's like children weren't allowed to go and visit their parents in hospital, or if you did, you could only go like once a month on a Sunday. And my mum was originally at St Michael's Hospital on the hill.
So my mum passed away with cancer, and the other stuff we were talking about, it sounds like there's so many parallels.
So, and my mother was a nurse, and she actually ignored the signs of she had signs that something was wrong, but she ignored it. And it was only until I was an adult that my one of my oldest siblings said to me that, yeah, your mummy ignored all of the signs, and it was when I think she was walking down the stairs, and she must have fainted or something, and then they took her into hospital. And the next thing I know, I never literally saw my mother again. She never walked back through the doors of 18 Lansdowne Road, which is where we lived in Redland. And so my dad would go and visit her regularly. And then I knew that there was something wrong because they moved her from St Michael's Hospital to then Bath Royal United in a kind of hospice wing. But I wouldn't know. I'm only 8. What the hell do I know? So I remember me and my siblings going to visit my mother, every other Sunday. And I just realized that she was deteriorating. This once healthy, beautiful, beautiful woman was literally shrinking in front of my eyes, but always in my head, in the intention, Mummy will be home soon. And on the days when my dad would go and visit, sometimes when we weren't allowed to go, we'd go and stay with my uncle who lives in St. Werburgh's. And we used to look forward to my dad coming to pick us up when he got back from the hospital because, you get a treat or something, you'd buy something and treat us. And I remember me and my siblings, the door knocked. I was at my uncle's house. So we decided, let's go and hide under the table, and scare Daddy when he comes in. And so we're sitting underneath the table waiting for my dad to walk into the room. And my dad, the door isn't opening, and it's only a few strides from the door. So I remember coming out from under the table, opening the door and looking out the door and seeing my dad, like tears in his eyes, and my uncle, they were speaking at the door, and then my dad left. He didn't actually come in. And it was my uncle and my aunt who had to break the news that my mother had passed away. And yeah, I think from then on in, I kind of assumed not a mother role, but I am a natural kind of leader. I've always, I felt that I just needed to be there for my dad, be there for my other siblings. He taught us how to cook. I already knew how to clean the house and do all those kind of things. So yeah, I just kind of very much went into mother mode.
You're a young carer by the sounds of it.
Call it that. A young carer.
Terminology used nowadays. But
yeah, but my dad was really, really good because he worked in construction. Every time I walk into Marks and Spencer's, or what is now Sparks, I feel really proud because I remember my dad saying to me, I put the lift, one of the lift shaft. Okay. He put the lift system and obviously helped to build Marks and Spencer's, and he was all over the place. So, so those are kind of some proud moments. But one of the things I will say, as a young carer, I always felt like, we could do this together. Me and my siblings and my dad, we could do this on our own, and we'd be fine.
Out of something that must have been hugely challenging. It sounds like you've taken positives from that. Is it? Can you think of?
Well, so do you know something? I've had to take positives because, I had the love of my mother up until that point, and I only have really, really positive, really, really positive memories. And a lot of my older relatives say to me, you're just like your mother, and I'm like, oh well, that's good then, because I know I can be quite an arsey. But I'm very resilient. What you see is what you get. Yeah. I am extremely authentic. I will not suffer fools gladly, but I'm also really kind-hearted. I'm a really good person. And, I will help anybody that needs any help. I'm not selfish in any way, but so sometimes I've got a portrait of my mother in my living room, so she's with me every day. I have a quick look and I have a little chat. Just like, what do you think? So we were fine, or I thought that I was fine, until we, other relatives felt that my dad couldn't care for us on our own, and we had to, we needed another adult woman in the house to care for us. And I'm not going to even go into those details, because I am writing my memoirs. But I always say, wicked stepmother mode set in. And that was a battle for many years. But
it must be difficult. I mean, I've experienced a similar thing, but it must be difficult. I can only imagine what it must be like to come into another family and then try to take on the role as a parent. Don't get me wrong, obviously every individual person is different. They would deal with it in a different way. So, just that thought of doing it, Do you know that?
I get that, but it's the intention, because I always felt the only reason why my dad picked this particular individual or she pushed herself is because of where we lived in Redland. Because a lot of Black people back in the days, they always used to comment, and I used to pick it up. Oh, Cleveland and Mavis, which is my mum and dad's name, we live in Redland, so we must have money. And, no, we were, I think, typical working class. My mother had higher ambitions for all of us, and they stretched their funds to be able for us to kind of buy a house in Redland. But I always say to people, don't watch the address. We were still getting a regular Jamaican upbringing behind the doors of Lansdowne Road. So we had all of these kind of people would say, oh, you're privileged. I wouldn't say we were privileged per se. We lived in a bubble, and to some degree, up until I suppose my parents died, and then shit got real, life got real.
There was a massive change.
It was a huge change, but it's made me who I am today.
Well, I mean, I wonder the other thing is as well. When you were growing up, did you have any outlets? So, like, as in, was there clubs? Was there activities? Was there youth provisions? Was there? What kind of things were you doing? What was young Asha doing? After school.
So after school, we used to just play out all the time with my friends. I used to go to Redland Park and Redland Green Park. Loved those parks. Had wonderful times during the summer. I used to go to Girls Brigade at St. Saviour's Church. I didn't go to kind of a youth centre per se at all. And I suppose I had my other siblings as well. But and at one stage, we were forced to go to one of my aunt's churches. And so we used to go to what can I say? Sunday school. And that was another outlet with lots of other kids and stuff like that. But no, I think Girls Brigade for me. I was also in the choir at St. Saviour's Church as well. So for about a couple of years. And but we just made our own fun as young people. Oh my God. And then my favorite was going to the cinema, ABC White Ladies, which is now, it's still a cinema now. But from 10 till 12, every Saturday morning, they used to have pictures, cartoons and everything showing for kids. So the cinema used to be ram-packed. I used to go every Saturday and just watch lots of cartoons, lots of little films, and just be with lots of other young people for at least 2 hours to kind of get away from stuff. It was good. It was good. It was great. I had a great childhood, I think. Well, that's amazing. That's exactly what we'd all hope for all our kids and everyone else's, and that's absolutely
that's how it should be. I mean, when you were growing up, do you feel like you had your voice heard? Like, people talk about young people now, don't they, about having a voice heard?
Yeah, so one of the things I will tell you, particularly in a Caribbean household and a Jamaican household, children should be seen and not heard. And you see me, Asha, even my sister reminded me the other day, she said, you always had to get the last word in.
How did that roll?
Yeah, well, put it like this. I got a lot of, I did get beaten a few times because
different generation.
Yeah, it was a different generation.
Times.
And I didn't suffer fools gladly. So even at 8, 9, 10 years old, if you're chatting shit as an adult,
I'm
sorry, I'm not swearing. I apologize. No, but my point is, if as an adult, if you're telling me this cup is blue and I'm telling you it's white and you're still trying to tell me it's blue, I'm going to make sure I'm just going to keep arguing with you. And I had no off switch.
Maybe politics was the right thing.
So yeah, I had a lot of run-ins, particularly with the stepmother as well.
I'd love to delve into this more, but I'm not.
You can't. But it will come out in my book because it's quite a revelation. But yeah, I had a lot to say. Even from a young age. And do you know what it was as well when my mother died? I remember my dad coming home from work, and I don't know if it was an experience of racism that he had, because he never really talked about it. But I remember him coming home one day, sitting us all down, me and my sister and brothers, and just saying to me, let me tell you something. He said, it doesn't matter who they are, or what title they have. They could be the Queen of England. Do not ever make anybody take advantage of you, talk to you any other way, or make anybody feel like you're inferior to them. And that's how I've always grown up. So nothing phases me.
Good words, Dad.
You could be the CEO. You could be anybody. I am not fazed by who you are and what title you have. So
don't look so worried, Evan.
Yeah. So it's always been internal to me. So I'm not scared of anything and anyone.
Well, it's a good trait. I'm sure there probably are things that could be classed as negatives from that, but I can guess.
Yeah,
I can only guess that it's mostly a positive thing.
No, I think it's because my dad must have. I took from that, and I've reflected on it, and I've just thought there was clearly people in positions of power who disrespected my father. And back in those days, he needed to keep a job. He needed to keep a roof over our head. So he wasn't going to, and so he wouldn't be able to articulate or, address that head on. So he came home and just said to us,
I hate to say this, so I don't know why I'm saying this now, but I mean, I don't play the game, but I'm not sure it's helped. But there we go.
Well,
sometimes it's got to say how it is, but
there are games to be played and there are games to be played, but I sometimes think I'm not necessarily a good game player. I always used to say I'm not even a really good politician because I lead with my heart. Like I said, I lead on social justice. So for me, even being a Labour politician, I know that many of the constituents in my ward of St. George that I represented over the last 8 years, I used to say to people all the time, you could be a Tory, you could be UKIP at the time, when I was knocking on people's doors and having conversations with them. I just said to them, don't watch the colour of my political leanings. Once I'm elected, I'm just your councillor. So, I don't lead with, I'm a Labour politician. I'm a councillor, first and foremost. Whatever you need, I'm here to help you.
Wow.
And
that has been lost, hasn't it? The serving of people more recently. But I mean, let me take you back a little bit because I think so. Once you've gone through your childhood, and then you've gone out into work. And could you give us like a bit of a whistle stop tour of your professional career? Because I reckon there's probably a few different jobs in there.
There are a lot of jobs. Go onto my LinkedIn, and I haven't even put half of that in there. But yeah, just really quickly. So at 16, I will say that I took 2 sets of exams. I took my O-levels and I took CSEs. And again, this is to show you about how the education system discriminated against young black people, because I always thought I was quite intelligent, but could never understand why I was always never in the top set. Okay, I was always in the B set or the C set. And I'm thinking, something's up here. So by the time I got to 16 and we were I was down to do CSEs, I was really frustrated because I felt that I was just as good as my other counterparts, remembering I didn't sit in those lessons. So my dad paid for me to take all my GCSEs, because I said, if you want to take GCSEs, my father was going to have to pay for it. My dad paid for the GCSEs, and I don't think I did it on purpose, but I actually got my GCSEs and CSEs at the same time. So I sat 2 sets of exams, and I was working part-time at QuickSave. So yeah, I also had to go and get myself a little part-time job at 16 so I could get some little money in and stuff like that. But then I went on to college. I went to City of Bristol College to do a business course. I won't say academia was not, it's not that I can't do it. I just get bored really easy. I'm more action orientated. Give me something to do and I'll get on and do it. So I remember not finishing I didn't finish it, and I went for a job. I went to Sight and Sound Secretarial College, because I remember at school when I was getting advice from the careers teacher, they were asking me, what do I want to do? And I, up until that point, I didn't even know what I wanted to do. But they were trying to set me up for what my life would look like. So I remember the careers teacher saying, oh, you could be a secretary, go and learn to type. And in my head, I'm thinking, I don't want to be no secretary. I don't want to kind of work for nobody. But something, the skill is really good. And back in those days, they had the YTS program. You were getting like 25 quid a week for like a year. So I went to Sight and Sound Technical College, which offered the YTS. So I was getting my £25 a week, learning to type and do shorthand. And just as I was coming up to finish that, I applied for my very first proper job at an import-export company called Tilden Industries. And do you know where that was? It was
Glad
right.
You said that. That sounded well dodgy for a minute.
No. It was down on Anchor. It was down on Anchor Road. So where the kind of watershed down there.
Waterfront.
Yeah, the waterfront. So the building is gone now, but their offices were down on Anchor Road. And I remember going for the interview. I was 17, 18. Went for my first interview. And remember, the other thing is I'm a Rasta woman, and I started to become a Ras from about 16, 17. So I got my head wrap on. It was those early days. And like I said, I am emboldened, so nobody can't chat to me, and I'm very confident. So I'm sitting down having the interview, and when the woman said to me at the end of the interview, have you got any questions for me? And I said, the only question I have is, do you have a problem with the fact that I am a Rasta and I wear a head wrap? And she said, no. Back in those days, you didn't have a mobile phone, but I had a phone at home. By the time I got home, she called me and said she offered me the job. So for like 2-3 years, I was an import-export kind of administrator for a shade netting, because they sold netting to Oman and those really Middle East and all over. And that was one of the best years. It kind of really set me up into the world of work. And then I went on, and at a very young age, in my 20s. So around that time is when I came into community activism.
That's what I was going to say.
So we had the riots.
Yeah, St. Paul's riots.
Yeah, we had the riots in St. Paul's. And by that time, I had left Redland, and I had my own flat on City Road. Give thanks to Nightstone Housing Association. Back in the day, social housing. Yeah, love that. And I remember the riots happening. And then obviously after that, we had the Tory government. William Waldegrave was our local MP. And I don't even know how I ended up going to a meeting up at the Quimba project. It was then called Inkworks. And I remember going to the meeting, and it was a meeting called by the council about SRB, regeneration money. So after all the riots that happened in Liverpool, in Toxteth, in Tottenham, all over, the government decided that they were going to throw money at it and have an in-area task force. We're going to single regeneration.
I know loads of youth workers that come out of that.
And
paying
listen,
for people to go to do degrees.
Listen,
and teachers.
What people don't know is I have my hand in a lot of stuff right even here in Knoll West. Even, building of the Knoll West Media Centre, Hartcliffe with Ventures, that was funded out of original SRB money. So what people don't know is that, so remember, the riots happened in St. Paul's. I go along to this meeting. You've got the head of planning there. I remember, I'm gonna shout out her name because she has been the chair of Cotton Grammar for quite some time. Her name is Sandra Fryer, and Sandra was the chief planning officer at that time at Bristol City Council. And I remember her talking about the SRB program and what have you, and them asking what the community wanted, and then just going away. Okay. So I don't even know how it happened, but I got wind of the fact that there were decisions that were about to be made at the city council about what was going to be funded. And at that time, we didn't have Black Southwest Network. We didn't even have Black Development Agency. So we didn't have anybody who was influencing and talking for the Black community directly. My first visit to Bristol City Council. So here I am, I'm 18 years old, wander up I hear that the meeting's happening at 2:00 in committee room 1, City Hall. So I go on up and walk in the room, and I'm like completely shocked because the room is full. There are people sitting around the rooms, people standing. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute here. Wasn't it the riots in St. Paul's that we had? So why the hell is there no Black people in this room? Why is there no one representing the communities of St. Paul or what have you? But guess what? The councillors from Hartcliffe, Knoll West, all of the other poor wards were there. I think the councillor from like Easton and St. Paul's were there. But again, there was no one representing us. So this is where Arsey Little
That must have been an eye-opener.
Not only was it an eye-opener, but it was also their first experience of me. Because the one thing I just started asking the questions. What the hell is going on? How are you making these decisions? Where are our communities? Who said this is what we wanted? This is how much money. So, and then I realized not only were they putting in a bid to government they were putting in a bid that was also going to bring in money to all the other communities. And I'm like, hold on a minute, wasn't the riot in St. Paul's? What the hell is going on here? So, yeah, I was naive, I was young, but also at the same time, I just thought, yeah, everyone's making sure that, their communities are sorted, but hold on a second here. So they're using Urban Area Programme or SRB funding to fund all the other communities and maybe just throw chump change at St. Paul's. Yeah, it was us who had the riots. We don't have any infrastructure, poor educational outcomes, poor housing, you name it, everything was going on. So yeah, Asha had a lot to say. And I remember being taken outside by somebody. His name is Martin Willey. Martin was the chief executive of what was the precursor to kind of WECA. It was called the Western Development Partnership. They were a huge West of England regeneration partnership, bringing in kind of a bit like the LEP, the LEP. And I remember him taking me to the side and saying to me, Asha, you need to understand that sometimes decisions are made in smoke-filled rooms. And I can remember, like it clear as day, just looking at him and saying to him, well, I don't smoke and I wasn't in the room. So I'm not.
That's the facts. Let's get down.
Yeah, I don't smoke. I'm not in the room. So, but basically he was saying sometimes you got to kind of give and take to get what you really want. And so in order for the bid to work, it would have made sense to also look at the other deprived communities. But, I'm 18, what do I know? And then moving on really quickly, I became the director of Avon Parents Network, a children's information service. I was, only about 20, 21. And around that time, I also got involved in what was the Bristol Council for Voluntary Service. I was working for what was then St. Paul's Community Association, which became the Malcolm X Centre. That was funded out of, so the first SRB, we knocked down the old school building and did that. So I worked with them. I just started to get myself involved in Race Equality Council. I was just a little busybody at like 18, 19, but so it's not like I had a mandate. I gave myself the mandate because I was thinking, okay, I got a lot to say, and there ain't people who look like me in the room, and I'm not afraid of any of you white people. So, hey, I'm just going to say what I need to say and get what I need to get for our communities. And so I ended up, I think I was 24 years old, and I ended up becoming the chair of the Bristol Regeneration Partnership. So my partners were the chief constable, the chief exec of everything that I did now as deputy mayor, I was already doing at 24.
Yes, I mean, only because of time. And the thing is,
yeah, I know.
I'm sure there's loads of other things which would be really kind of interesting to hear about. But I guess kind of fast tracking, this was the foundations for you moving towards politics. And just very quickly, because I don't want to spend loads of time questioning you on anything about that. But what were the things in politics in your time with the council that you really enjoyed, and what were the things that you didn't?
The one thing that I really enjoy was the soft and the hard power that I had to enable and bring about change for different communities. And so, the work that we did, I led on the bid for us to become a gold sustainable food city, and we were the second city in Bristol. And people used to say to me, Asha, without the political kind of leadership on this, because even other politicians used to come to me from other cities and ask, how come Bristol has managed to? I said, because you've got to be purposeful. If you really want to do this, anything I do it with intention. I'm not point scoring here. I really wanted Bristol to become a sustainable food city, and we were going to collaborate and do it collectively. Partnership working, collaboration. Marvin's move to create the One City approach was a genius move, because I led the response to COVID during our time during the COVID, because I was a cabinet lead on public health. Again, bringing the whole city together, leaders across public, private, voluntary and community sector, faith communities, meeting with them on a regular basis, trying to encourage more communities to take up the COVID jabs and all of that, and trying to suppress the number of deaths that we had in the city. But I think one of the things I really loved was when Marvin asked me to step into the role of cabinet member for children and education. I thought, yes, now's my opportunity to sort out youth provision and funding for youth provision, because I made no bones about the fact that I was never really happy about the decision. And I think we were pushed in a corner because, it was early days as a young administration. And so the option on the table was, okay, we're going to fund one organisation. We're just going to award the whole lump sum of youth provision to one organisation, and let's stick our finger up in. This is how I felt. I just felt like, and now we're going to have to depend on that one organisation to distribute this £4 million that they exclusively are going to get. I've been there, done that, worn the T-shirt, because remember, I cut my teeth in the voluntary community sector. So I've seen it happening, like you said, in many different quarters. And let me tell you, the fallout will always be not good. Nothing will come of it. So I think I was stewing right in the background on the cabinet. So when I was hearing about stuff that was going on, and I'm like, told you so, but I can't say anything about it. It is what it is. Let's see what happens. So when Marvin said, Asha, I need you to step up, when Councillor Godwin stepped away from politics completely, and the youth contract was coming to an end, I thought, hallelujah, now is an opportunity to make this right for the youth groups in the city. Because I think for me, I was really, you're the guys who are at the cutting edge. You are the guys who are at the coalface, right? But yet other organizations are taking credit for the work that you are actually doing. Because there are some big organizations that are too afraid to deal with some of the young people that you are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. But yeah, they will take credit for it because, hey, you were part of the contract that you have with them. But your work adds to their numbers, okay? And it makes them grow, but everyone else is still staying stagnant.
I'd love to say something just quickly. And I mean, I'm only saying it, and it's just being honest.
And can I just say something? I'm not here to disrespect another organization per se, and it may come across, but it's like the processes and the systems that you have that we had sometimes operate actually do the wider sector a disservice.
No, I mean, I agree. And I think to some extent, you know, and it isn't a dig at any one organisation. I know it isn't. It just so happens it would have been a certain organisation that would have, you know, had that amount of funding and would have been...
Yeah, absolutely.
That. But isn't this happening again in a similar kind of way in the South now? Like, it's to learn from what has gone on in the past. That feels like it. I know it's different because it's not central Bristol, but it's not dissimilar in a lot of ways.
No, I hear you. But again, this is about you all as organisations kind of working together and learning how to work together much more collaboratively. Because remember, the council has a finite amount of money. And the one thing I will say is Bristol are lucky because there are some cities that don't have any funding. Quite a number of local authorities are not investing in youth provision. They don't have the resources anymore. So many youth organisations have to look for external funding. And we knew that the £4 million that we made available to the sector is only a drop in the ocean compared to the amount of money that you can bring in externally. So, you know, I made it a mission that as soon as I got in and I knew that it was up and running, that I was saying, okay, sector, if you don't like the current setup, you come back to me with a plan. Because I did not dictate to the sector, to the youth sector, what it is that you needed to deliver to make sure that the money could stretch and you could kind of deliver. But you were the guys who had, through the youth network that you established, was it 70 odd youth organisations? You all came together and you came up with the infrastructure. Now I hear you about the South, but again, it is about better collaboration and also trying not to think that, you know, and I know what you're referring to because
I'm not. It's no digs. I'm only ever honest, and we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because it'd be great to hear your thoughts and other stuff.
But I'm really.
But if it was set up from the beginning, if collaboration was the key part of this, really being distributed and supporting other communities and other organisations across that area, then surely with collaboration in mind, then, I mean, I'm just saying this off the top of my head, there should have been a collaborative board of people from different organisations or council or something. I don't know.
But I thought my view, I understand that when we were giving out the funding, part of the giving out of the funding was that there were different networks that are set up. So there's a network for Central, there's one for North, and isn't there a collaborative group of youth organisations?
For the funding, the funding you're talking about. Yeah. But I thought you were talking about the particularly with the youth zone.
But do you know
with collaboration in mind?
So one of the things
why hasn't that been set up?
Well, that it will happen because I think
it needs to be at the beginning. Because it needs to get everyone's voices heard, and I know you believe in that, which is why I don't like. I'm not.
I do, and maybe that's something that needs to be explored because we haven't even dug into the ground yet to kind of start building it. But we have been talking to the young people who themselves are very much a part of the kind of the design infrastructure for the youth zone. But you're absolutely right, because remember, the youth zone is going to rely on many organisations, including grassroots communities, to either take up space or kind of work within that. And there will have to be some kind of stakeholder advisory board or something. So it's coming. What I would say to you is, ideally, it would have helped if it happened in the beginning. But, you know, I think Councillor Godwin was the one who had the vision initially, having gone to visit the youth zone in other parts of the city. And I had the opportunity to go and visit the one in Croydon, and I was even climbing walls and all sorts. And let me tell you, I feel you guys are going to be like, when you get your youth zone,
that's not.
There ain't going to be no more conversations about what went on.
All I hope is it really works, and young people engage in it, and it makes a massive difference.
And I expect,
there's still a provision that is across the area that will support people that wouldn't be able to make it to that space and things like that. I think that's all we can hope for.
Particularly in terms of the kind of street work and that you are going to be doing, is going to be absolutely critical. Well,
it's not funded though from the council. I mean, listen, I don't want to get into it because I don't want to it's not funded by the council because that money has been taken away now to pay for the youth zone.
It's a one-off.
For the detached work, for example.
I hear.
But let's not go into that.
Let's not go into that.
You're a sidetrack.
Let's not go into that.
What do you think then is the differences that young people face now compared to 20 years ago, for example?
Do you know what? It feels like it's always been a deja vu moment for me on a regular basis, because I think it's the same issues that apply. I think, particularly here in Bristol, I'm still, the stubbornness around the outcomes in educational attainment and achievement for young people, particularly in the poorest parts of our city. Employment and training opportunities, expansion of kind of apprenticeships. I think one of the things I am really glad about is that the emphasis on everybody needs to go on to university and kind of do academia, and the fact that we've seen a real uptick in the number of apprenticeships and higher apprenticeships. Because remember, academia isn't for everybody. I'm living proof, right? Because I went on to do a university degree when I was in my 30s, right? Because I was ready to, and I had all the, I had the work behind me to enable me to kind of do that. I think obviously climate change is a huge issue. I'll tell you the one thing that I do love about this younger generation is so much more intelligent from one of the things I loved about my role.
Speak for yourself.
No. Can I just say one thing that I really, really loved about my role is I love going to visit schools, coming out to youth groups and others, and having the kind of one-to-one conversation. And I love this generation because you guys are just you are nothing like what we used to be when we were younger. I think you're much more braver than some of us are. You're ready to kind of go out there and get what you want. I love the fact that, when we were all growing up, everyone was thinking, what kind of jobs are we going to get? And just, do a normal 9 to 5 and be in that job for 20, 30 years. Obviously, the job market isn't like that, but you are all creating your own opportunities. So I have 3 daughters, all of whom are, they demonstrate excellence at every level, and then their friends, and then kind of even these 2 young people who are here. Yeah,
don't be fooled.
I feel really good.
Young Dougie's 30.
Yeah, I still can't get over. For those of you who are watching,
he's blessed.
Yeah,
the skin of a 20-year-old.
The cameraman looks 18 and he's trying to tell me he's 30, and that's a lie.
It's definitely fair.
But 100%. It's not actually. He's 30, but he looks 18. That's all I got to say. But this generation, your voice is a much more louder than ours was, and far more politically. I think few more politically, but then there is the continuing lost generation. There is still those young people, particularly those young people that you are working with, who are leaving school without any qualifications, leaving school without any kind of real ambition.
What do you think? Because I know literally we've got minutes left now, so sorry we got in front of you a little bit, but just to get your views on, because we all know that not everyone has the same kind of pathway to opportunities that others do, and that, you could argue that isn't anyone's fault in particular, but what do we need to do to create opportunities for people that are further away from realising things that really matter to them based on their upbringing, based on their postcode, based on their situation.
We need more organisations like grassroots communities to also come in.
Well, help.
But also,
someone fund us then.
Yeah, but not just that. But also, schools have to take on a lot of the responsibility for some of the failings. And I've made no bones about the fact that we can do better. Like I've said before, there is no excuse that any young person should leave school without any form of qualification. The high exclusion rates that were happening in the city were ridiculous and completely off the scale. And when you kind of disaggregate that down, again, it's young black boys and it's young white boys in Hartcliffe, in Knoll. The data, the one thing,
I can reel off the data. I do it too often.
Yeah, no, the data does not lie, but opportunities for, businesses to come in and help to kind of mentor. And there is a lot of money in this city. There are a lot of businesses and organizations who are willing to help and will put them hand in their pockets. So I think it's and there's wider funding available. And now we have a Labour government. I'm feeling good.
Can I ask you a question? Because I think it's interesting. You obviously know about the GAP program and the mini GAP program, and Evan is here, perfect example of someone that's gone through that and working towards something that he's passionate about, something that matters to him. And I can only hope that could be the case for every young person, no matter what the background or situation. But do you think, going back to the school situation, is that anything to do with the government and what the structure has been and what the schools can actually do, or is it actually individual schools? Because I know we've got academies. Is it?
No,
where does this lie?
Do you know what? I actually think it could be a combination of both, but I put the blame fairly and squarely on schools themselves. I've seen schools that have turned around. I remember back in London when they had City Challenge, there were a number of schools that were just really, really poor. Now they're some of the top schools in London because of investment from, I think that like the Mayor of London, he obviously had far more resources, but directly investing into those schools through the City Challenge literally turned poor performing schools into like high performing schools. So you've got there's a school in kind of Hackney now. They're sending their kids to Oxford and Cambridge. I want to see that happening to the kids who are going to the schools here in this community as well. Absolutely.
The reason why I keep saying about this now is just because if that is the case, how would that change here? Because if it's not the government and we've got to change the government,
you know what it is as well,
and we've got academies. How is the government going to lean on academies then to change what they're doing? If it isn't the government's issue, then how does it really change?
It's a bit too far gone. One of my biggest frustrations is because of the academisation. It's like the council.
There's no proof that it's better.
There is no. Listen, for me, back in the days when it first started, I thought this is like a money-making venture because you see all of these academy trusts popping up and they're just adding schools and they're employing and giving people big salaries and what have you. But yet the results don't stack up to the amount of investment that is going into that infrastructure. So what the hell is going on? And young people who are finding it difficult, they just want to get rid of them.
I spoke to someone yesterday that's going to be doing Youth Gap, and it was I spoke to her mum, and I mean, I talk about these things too often, so I don't want to go into it. It still happens now, and people are just literally taken off the roll.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
parents,
they're not even put into anything else.
And parents have no way or no clue how to navigate the system. It works against those parents. So you as a parent whose child is about to be excluded, and you're like up against this system called the school. They can talk till they can.
What can you do? The irony is, if your kids don't go, you'll get fined. But then when they want to get rid of you, because you're not necessarily conforming to what it is to be a school student, to do what is expected.
Do you know something?
Is it a surprise that we're seeing so many people out on the street?
There are some schools who bully parents. Okay, or parents actually feel quite intimidated by their schools.
Well, this was the story I heard yesterday.
Yeah, they feel intimidated. They don't know the questions to ask. They actually don't know that they actually do have certain rights and what they need to do. They just feel that once the school has made a decision, oh, your child is being excluded, that they'll come to the local authority. My hands is tied. It's an academy trust. And the other thing that you have to remember is because we have so many different academy trusts, they have got their own different values and behaviours and their own different systems. So there is no even consistency in the approach to which many
Well, that was meant to be one of the positives, wasn't it? That people could that they could tailor what their offer was based on the individual community's needs. I mean, the jury is out.
Yeah, well, let's not talk about some.
Final question.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
Look, this is quite a big one in the sense that the answer doesn't have to be quite big.
Okay.
But when I find this out to a few different, everyone gives completely different responses. But the podcast is called What Really Matters. And if I was going to say to you, Asha, at this point, what really matters to you? If you go to bed at night and you know, if you looked up to the stars and you thought about boiling down, what are the things that really matter to you? What would they be?
I suppose for me, I have been fighting, as I said, for social and racial justice all of my life. And I just want to wake up one morning and just see equity right across the piece. You know, I don't want to see people of colour, poor people, you know, people who are different being treated any differently because they are different. So I proudly stand on the record that I've had throughout my life, and particularly over the last 8 years. I have never shied away from the fact that, you know, tackling equity, diversity, quality, social justice, call it what you will, has always had to be the golden thread through everything that I do. So I wake up every morning just wanting to see fair. I want people treated fairly. I want equity. I want everybody to rise and shine and be the best that they can be, whatever direction of travel that they want to go on. So yeah, that's
beautiful.
Me. Yeah.
Well, look, I agree. It's the truth. I might not sound like I do with certain things at other times, but it's because I'm passionate about it and because I agree with that.
Absolutely. And the one thing I will, my final point is, you know, I believe in you young people. I am blessed to be a mother of 3 amazing daughters. I have always given my time to young people throughout my time in office and even before. I will mentor people. People have shadowed me. I'll give you some advice and I will continue to do that. As I said before, I was Asha Craig before I became the Deputy Mayor and I am Asha Craig now. And I feel I have still far more, and it's not even about power. It's just about I am who I am, and titles come and go, but I will always remain consistently, authentically myself. So, as I've said to people, be very afraid of me now I'm out of office.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what happens. And
it's going to be great. It's going to be, it's going to be great. Well, yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of international travel. I'm not going to, people will find out what I'm going to be doing. But I've taken a couple of months out to just rest and reset and watch the space. But yeah.